What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm back in another video. This time we're looking at the best old guy championship runs in NBA history. And when I use the phrase old guys, I'm looking at players who are 35 years older and led their team to an NBA title. And we're looking through NBA history, there are very few championship runs led by a player at that age. It is extremely rare and extremely impressive to be that old and lead your team to an NBA championship. And today in this video, I have narrowed it down to the top 5 old guy championship runs. And without wasting any more time, let's get number 5, which is 2014 Tim Duncan, who was 37 years old. And obviously Duncan at this point was not in his prime, but still he's a very effective player for this Spurs team, who was coming off a very disappointing championship exit in the 2013 finals. And we're looking at Duncan this season, he averaged 15.1 points per game, 9.7 boards, nearly 2 blocks, while shooting nearly 50% from the field. And this Spurs team was one of the best defensive teams as well as the best offensive teams in the entire league, and because of that, they had the best record in the Western Conference. And Duncan this year individually had 30 double-doubles, that was top 5 in the NBA. He was 9th in defensive win shares and 8th in defensive box plus minus, one of only a handful of players top 10 in both those defensive categories. And at this point in Tim's career, he was still a walking double-double, but I think his defensive impact kind of gets lost in the older Duncan seasons. I mean, this year, he's a great rim protector, as well as a great help defender, and just a great all-around player on the defensive end. And even with him being 37 years old, he was still a highly effective defender who could lock down even the best NBA athletes. Now, if you look at the 2014 playoffs, Duncan's stats would actually improve, as he averaged 16.3 points per game, 9.2 boards, 1.3 blocks on 52% shooting. And when you compare those stats versus the Spurs team, he was top 2 in all those categories, while also being 2nd in defensive win shares, only behind Kawhi Leonard. And we're looking at this playoff run in total, I think Duncan was the Spurs' best overall player, given his experience, his IQ, his scoring ability, and his immense impact on the defensive end. So just because Duncan didn't win the Finals MVP doesn't take away from how great he was this season at the ripe age of 37 years old. And that's why I put Duncan at the number 5 spot on the best old guy championship runs. Now next up, we have another top 10 player of all time, that being Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain in 1972. And this year Wilt was 35 years old, playing for the LA Lakers. And very similar to Duncan, Wilt at this point was not in his prime, but he was still a very effective player, specifically on the defensive end. And when you look at Wilt's stats, they're still highly impressive as he dominated the game in all aspects, as he averaged 14.8 points per game, 19.2 boards, 4.0 assists on 64.9% shooting. And this Lakers team at the time won an NBA record 69 games and had the longest win streak in NBA history. And Wilt's stats for his age are definitely impressive, but the most impressive thing this season is that Wilt played all 82 games, playing 42.3 minutes per game. Now also looking at the playoffs, Wilt averaged 14.7 points per game, 21 rebounds, 3.3 assists on 56% shooting. And this Lakers team only lost 3 games en route to the championship. And Wilt in the playoffs once again played a staggering 46.9 minutes per game, which is unheard of for the modern day player. But perhaps the most impressive part of Wilt's run is how he played in the NBA Finals, averaging 19.4 points per game, 23.2 boards, 2.5 assists on 60% shooting. And in Game 5 of this series, the closeout game, he had 24 points, 29 boards, and 4 assists on 71% shooting. And because of that great game, as well as the great series, Wilt Chamberlain was given his first ever Finals MVP at the age of 35. And as it stands today, Wilt Chamberlain is the 3rd oldest Finals MVP in NBA history. Now moving on from Wilt, we have his big-time rival, that being Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1985 at the age of 37. And Kareem this year was definitely not in his prime, but still was a highly effective player. This year, he averaged 22 points per game, 7.9 boards, 2.1 blocks on 59.9% shooting. And I would say top to bottom, he was the best player for this Lakers team. And speaking of this Lakers team, they once again had the best record in the Western Conference, winning 60+ games, and Kareem was 4th in MVP voting. And the most impressive thing I could find this year from Kareem is he played 79 games, which is pretty unheard of for a player at 37 years old. And also versus Houston, he scored 40 points, becoming one of only 5 players ever to score that many points while being 37 years or older. And all those stats right there are very impressive, But how Kareem played in the playoffs is even more impressive. In his playoff run, he averaged 21.9 points per game, 8.1 boards, 4.0 assists on 56% shooting, and LA only lost 4 games en route to the championship. And Kareem this year was the Finals MVP, the oldest ever in NBA history. In this playoff run, he had a total of 416 points, the only player in NBA history to score that many points in a playoff run while being 37 years or older. In the NBA Finals versus Boston, he scored 36 points, becoming the oldest player ever to have 35 points or more in a playoff game. And speaking of that Boston series, I think people forget how dominant Kareem was versus the Dynasty Celtics. In that series, he averaged 25.7 points per game, 9.0 boards, 5.2 assists on 60% shooting. Let me just show you guys how dominant that series was. Compared to a prime Larry Bird, who was the MVP, Kareem outscored him, he out-rebounded him, and he averaged more assists than him while also shooting nearly 10% higher from the field. So even Kareem past his prime and nearing 40 was on par if not better than a prime Larry Bird. That right there is an amazing feat. That's why I have Kareem's 85 run as the third best old guy championship run in NBA history. Now finally getting the top 2, at number 2, we have another all-time great Laker, that being LeBron James in 2020. And at the age of 35 this year, he definitely came to play, averaging 25 points per game, 10 assists, and 8 boards on 49% shooting. And his Lakers team had the best record in the Western Conference for the first time since 2010. And because of that great year, LeBron was second MVP voting, only behind a prime Giannis. And my 2 big takeaways from LeBron this year is that he averaged 10.2 assists, which led the NBA, and he had 148 threes, the second most in his career. And I know 2020 seems like forever ago, but if you go back to this Lakers team before the playoffs started, a lot of people were doubting this team, specifically LeBron James. When it came to the playoffs, he upped his game, averaging 27.6 points per game, 10.8 boards, 8.8 assists on insane 56% shooting. And this Lakers team only lost 5 games en route to the championship. And historically speaking, LeBron this year had one of the best old guy runs in NBA history. Among players over the age of 35, he was second in scoring average, 4th in assists, and 6th in rebounds. The only player in NBA history to be top 10 in all those categories. And probably even more impressive than that is how LeBron played in the NBA Finals, averaging 29.8 points per game, 11.8 boards, 8.5 assists on nearly 60% shooting. And even with Anthony Davis on this roster, he led LA in points per game, rebounds, as well as assists. And he dominated the Heat en route to his 4th championship and his 4th Finals MVP. So LeBron back in 2020 had one of the best playoff runs of all time, and we're ranking it versus the other old guys. I think it firmly comes in at the number 2 spot. And for the number 1 spot, I chose 98 Jordan, who was 35 years old this season. And as you guys know, this year for Jordan was his last year in Chicago and his last year with Scottie Pippen, as well as Dennis Rodman. And this year Jordan would definitely not disappoint, as he averaged 28.7 points per game, 5.8 boards, 3.5 assists on 46% shooting. And his Bulls team had the best record in the East, winning 60 plus games for the 3rd straight year. And because of all that great success, Jordan was the MVP for his 5th and final time. And the 2 things I want to point out is that Jordan this year played all 82 games, and the games Scottie Pippen didn't play, which is 38 games, the Bulls still went 26-12, which was good enough for first in the Eastern Conference. And to give you guys some context going into the playoffs, this Bulls team, they were the oldest team in the NBA. As you guys know, Jordan was 35, but Dennis Rodman was 36, Pippen was 32, and Ron Harper was also 34. Luke Longley and Tony Kukoc were both 29, and Steve Kerr was 32. Now, even with that being said, Jordan in the playoffs still played fantastic, averaging 32.4 points per game, 5.1 boards, 3.5 assists on 46% shooting. And stats-wise, Jordan in his playoff run was all-time great, scoring 680 points, the 9th most ever in a playoff run. Also, he scored 30 points 14 times, which is the 3rd most in NBA history. In the NBA Finals, he averaged 33.5 points per game, which is the highest ever for a player 35 years or older. Also in the Finals, his Bulls team only averaged 54.5 points per game, which is the lowest ever for a championship team supporting cast. And of course, in talking about Jordan, the one game you have to go to is Game 6 in Utah, as in this game, him and his Bulls team were near exhaustion and on the verge of their 6th championship. In this game, Jordan had 45 points, outscoring the entire Bulls team. In the fourth quarter, he had 16 points and had another Bulls teammate score over 3 points. And the final minute of this game is an absolute masterpiece as Jordan absolutely takes over on the offensive end as well as the defensive end, and it's the biggest clutch time shot in NBA Finals history. And I think taking all that into account, 98 Jordan is the best old guy championship run in NBA history. So with that being said, that is the end of the video. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Who do you think had the best old guy championship run? Who did I leave out? And who do you think should have ranked higher? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.